Hi guys, my name is Emma and let's talk spooky stuff. Okay, I get it. You may be asking yourself why this spooky girl is talking about a crime drama romance TV show. Yes, you heard me. IMDb classifies you as romance. I don't know about you guys, but when I think romance, I think You've Got Mail, I think The Notebook. I do not think this TV show. But the reason I'm here today is to talk about the spooky, thrilling, controversial character of Joe and the book that does not hold back. Make no mistake, this is a thriller. Today I'm going to break down why You, the book, was so terrifying and why, in spite of that, You, the TV show, was so successful. Usually I keep these things spoiler free, but today we're going to go deep and especially into Joe's character. This will contain spoilers for the first season and the second season of the TV show, as well as the book. It's not going to so much go into the storyline, but again, it's going to revolve itself around the character. So if you've seen it and you have some thoughts, I'm so excited to talk to you today. I've been dying to get these things out of my head and into a video, and you guys actually asked for it. So I hope to hear your opinions in the comments down below. It's gonna get a little bit controversial. Let's jump in. Netflix's 2018 series You stars Penn Badgley as Joe Goldberg. Don't comment on his attractiveness. Don't comment on his attractiveness. Emma, shut up. Joe, who is a troubled man who stalks women, and he creates false narratives for them to fit into an unexisting perfect partner. Let's call it what it is. But although this is my interpretation, the blurb for the show says different. A dangerously charming, intensely obsessive young man goes to extreme measures to insert himself into the lives of those he's transfixed by. Wow, way to underplay a psychotic killer. Even Dexter got a more harsh synopsis than that, but we will get to him. You is based on the correctly categorized thriller novel by Caroline Kepnes. And man, oh man, I listened to the first book via Audible. This is not an Audible ad. That's just how I did it. And it creeped the hell out of me. I love horror movies, but this guy talking into my ears for 12 hours, I need some therapy. I don't think I've ever heard anything more creepy in my life, and because of the way the book is written, much like the TV show, Joe narrates the story only with his point of view being explained. As an audiobook, it's a sick first-person account into a psychotic mind. His intentions and uncensored thoughts, many of which you do not want to hear. Now for my take, I don't know if this is going to be controversial, but I fell full force into the TV show, especially season 1. And I think I fell into the hole that many people did. The guy was clearly sick, but he is conventionally attractive. Let's get it out of the way. And it was so interesting to watch someone who looked like him being portrayed as a creep. I watch a lot of stalker movies. I love stalker movies. I'm a bit of a weirdo like that. And obviously I watch a lot of thrillers and horror movies, but I've never seen a stalker, psycho creep quite like Joe. And the way they were so blunt in the TV show about Joe, showing him pleasuring himself on the street while watching his victims through their windows. It was so alarming to me for a Netflix show. The juxtaposition of what should be a rom-com type character displaying sick and twisted attributes was startling. And the hole you fall down into is so strange, but you can't look away. So the most interesting thing for me about the book was the fact that Joe's attractiveness, Joe's appearance was not spoken about once. So it was really up to you to figure out who Joe was in your mind. As I already said, the book was completely terrifying. The language was brutal and vile. I felt like he snapped a lot more when things didn't go his way, and he was a huge victim blamer, blaming everybody for what he did to them. His narration in the book suggests that the women made him want them. For me, it was so obvious that he had this obsession for the pixie manic dream girl that never was. The book was so terrifying because it showed him for who he really was. The TV show lets him hide behind a mask because you see him as a human being. So I was very surprised to hear that the author for this book didn't think of Joe as a bad person. In fact, it's just like he had a few bumps in the road, you know?
He is a bookseller, he is sympathetic and sweet, and all he wants is love, and he loves all the movies you love, but he kills people. So that's the deal breaker, they call it.
So he's a serial killer. He's pretty old.
He's killed. I can't think of him that way. I mean, you're right technically, but he's someone who meets terrible people and then he copes with them by killing them. In his mind, he's sparing them. So he's sort of like a veterinarian for humans.
I'm sorry, but while you're suffocating your ex-girlfriend who you kept locked up in a cage and you're saying, you made me do this to you, I don't really think it's just terrible people. There are some key differences between the TV show and the book and why Joe was a little bit fluffier on screen. Joe is portrayed in more of a social accepting way because of the introduction of Paco. And in season 2, which I have not read the book, but there is a similar character that uses the same method. Her name is Ellie. These children befriend Joe and Joe protects them. And the introduction of these characters in the TV show gives him a redeeming quality. He's the soft and sweet protector. And just like he longs for these women, there's also obstacles in the way of what he wants because he has to protect these children along the way. But in the first book, there is no helpless kid that Joe has to save. And I feel like this was just made up to soften his character. Because in the end, in the book, Joe just wants what he wants. He cares for no one, and in the end, he doesn't even care about the women he loves. In the TV show and in the book, some of the time, Joe acknowledges when he is appearing to be creepy. But he doesn't believe he's actually creepy. Of course not. This is just some cosmic comedy kind of situation, misunderstanding, a mishap. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time. In fact, he thinks if he was in a rom-com, which, I mean, this is meant to be romantic drama, so we're almost there, that what he does for these women and how he stalks his victims would be seen as sweet and charming. Even though this is seen in both mediums, in the book, Joe has such little self-awareness. Most of the conflict is met with denial, deflecting, and victim blaming. And if he's called out for anything, it's always, they made me do that, look what you made me do. And the next part of self-awareness is where the book and the TV show both are lacking, but it's really interesting the different routes they had because it really changes your perception of Joe and his character. In the TV show, Joe's entitlement is a little bit downplayed. He's seen as he likes the old way. He was born in the wrong time. He's cultured. He reads books. He's smart. While in the book, he is completely arrogant and he doesn't think anyone measures up to his intelligence. He's above everybody, including the law. Towards the end of season 1 of the TV show, we learn that Candace didn't die. In fact, she is very much alive. And during season 2, we learn more about the night that Joe tried to hide her body. This is one of the greatest differences I found in the book because you know that he had an ex and he mentions her in passing and how he drowned her. But there is no details. He doesn't go too much into what happened. It's just said in passing almost. It scared me so much because the lack of details and mystery around it, of course, is the unknown, which is scary anyway. But the fact that it's left up to your imagination to know how it all went down is terrifying. And the fact that it's just a passing thought to him, it's completely psychotic. And when he says this, there is no emotion attached to it. He's completely unfazed, while in the TV show, you see these emotions play out. Not revealing the information behind this in the book makes it much less of this kind of drama soap opera, and in turn, it's much more effective with scaring the audience. But there is something that he describes in mad detail in the book, and that's the not safe for work aspect. You know, when it turns into porn like every 5 minutes? The book goes into great detail about what he likes, things he wants to do with his eggplant, his sexual fantasies, everything. It is crazy. It's too much information. I think that it was worse for me because instead of just reading it, I was listening to it, and sometimes I was at like the dog park listening to this guy talk about what he was doing with this girl's cupcake, and YouTube censors me. That's why I'm saying these words, but my God, it was a lot. I just wanted to warn you, it really has nothing to do with how I feel about Joe. So obviously you can see the main differences between the TV and the book, and you've probably got a vibe on why this TV show has been such a success, but let's break it down. In my opinion, the reason that the TV show You works so well is because of its format, which has to be said follows very closely behind the hit TV show Dexter. Self-narration of a story where one person holds all the secrets and is killing others because of their own beliefs. Both are windy shows with so much drama, and of course, the fear of their secrets being let out comes into play over and over again. But here is the key difference. Dexter uses his inner killer for what he sees as good, while Joe uses his inner killer to harm anyone who gets in the way between him and his romantic target. And TV Joe provides hints of his traumatic childhood to create sympathy for his actions. We want to like Joe. We want to believe his excuses, which leads me to my final and most terrifying point. Joe targets a woman because he believes that they have a connection even if they don't know each other. He knows in his heart that that is his soulmate. And when I think about this, it reminds me of 500 Days of Summer, the film where boy falls for girl, but girl is just in it for the fling. Creating a person in your head and then projecting this onto another person is unhealthy, yet it's something that we all have experienced in small or big ways. Have you ever had a friend who you thought was somebody and then turned out to be somebody else, and then you look back and hindsight is 2020, you had projected onto them all of the good qualities you thought they had? Of course, this can happen with a family member, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, but we've all experienced this in a certain way, even if it's someone who thought you were somebody different because they wanted to believe it. But unlike us everyday folk, as soon as Joe realizes that he may have misinterpreted someone or they're not exactly what he hoped them to be, he makes up excuses for them. He blames other people and he drives a wedge, whether that's killing or separating someone. And if they don't accept his changes, he locks them into a cage until they submit. On paper, Joe is terrifying, but when you fluff him up a bit for a big streaming network like Netflix, you want to make him a little bit more redeemable. Some of his flaws are forgiven, you want to be on his side, and like me, you're sitting there when the credits roll, feeling duped by a boy with a pretty face. But at the end of the day, thank God, Joe is just a character and he isn't based on anyone in real life. Because, you know, the author still thinks he's Prince Charming, but at least we have Stephen King on our side. Stephen King said that you was terrifying. I feel like the author may be in just as much denial as Joe was in, because if the king himself is terrified by this fictional man, come on, what more proof do you need? To me, the book You was terrifying, and it shares the inner dialogue of a complete psychopath who shares thoughts that should never be heard. But the TV show changed him. He is a passionate, troubled young man who just wants to be loved. And you can see now why this flock of people are romanticizing him. Just check it out. But this reply is gold. Good boy. I want to be clear, I really did like the TV show You, and I was really hooked. For me, it turned into a complete guilty pleasure, and I just wanted to get my thoughts out there. But I do want to say, after listening to the audiobook, my thoughts on Joe have completely changed, and I feel like Joe from the book and Joe from the TV show are completely different characters. One is fluffy and one is a horror movie, really. After reading the book, I really see you for what you are. Oh, you. I'm sorry. Let me know your thoughts down below. What did you think about Joe? Do you woof him? Sorry, I had to. But wow, what a ride. I'm still going to be really conflicted when I watch season 3. And yes, I did love the end of season 2. I loved that last shot where everyone hated that because it's comical. But it's so different to the book because the book is so brutal. Anyway, let me know what you guys think down below. Check it out, and I really highly recommend listening to the audiobook. I wish I had an Audible code for you, but I don't. But I promise you, you'll definitely have some different thoughts on Joe after listening to that. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. We'll be back to talking about horror next week, I promise, and I'll see you guys then. Bye.